Hello everyone, I'm Brett, and this is Nightwood Guns. So as I'm sure you noticed from the title of the video, today we're going to be talking about the Gen 3 and the Gen 4 Glocks, and which one you should buy. So first of all, I'd like to start out by saying that both the Gen 3 and the Gen 4 Glocks are reliable. You cannot make a wrong decision here, because both of them work as intended. They're reliable, as long as you know how to shoot them, they're accurate, and they will serve you well in a defensive capacity. So what I have on the table today are a Gen 4 Glock 19 and a Gen 3 Glock 20 SF. 10mm, 9mm. So the first thing you're going to notice about the Gen 3 versus the Gen 4 is that the grips are significantly different. On the Gen 3, it has very smooth texturing on the side, and on the front strap, we have finger grooves and aggressive checkering on the front strap. And on the back strap, pretty aggressive checkering. On the Gen 4, we have more of a stippling that is less aggressive, but is present on the sides of the grip, and the same stippling is in between the finger grooves and along the back strap. The next thing a lot of people notice about the Gen 3 versus the Gen 4 is the magazine release. The magazine release on the Gen 3 is non-ambidextrous. You can't swap it over to the other side. And it's also much smaller in profile, but it does stick out a little more. On the Gen 4, it is ambidextrous. You can swap it over to the other side if you're left-handed, or if you're a weird righty that likes to have a magazine release on the opposite side. And it's going to be a much larger profile, but it's also a slimmer profile. Now, when it comes down to grip texture and magazine release, it really boils down to personal preference. Some people like the magazine release of the Gen 3 because it sticks out a little further, so it's easier to hit. But other people don't like it because during concealed carry, it might be poking them. And on the Gen 4, a lot of people like the bigger overall profile of the magazine release because they think it's easier to hit. But some people don't like it because it doesn't stick out as far. Me personally, it feels the same. Now, because the magazine releases are different, the magazines are also slightly different. The Gen 4 magazine has little slots on both sides, so if you swap the magazine release over to the other side, it will still click into place and lock into place, whereas the Gen 3 magazine does not have the second slot. So don't try to use a Gen 3 magazine in a Gen 4 if you have swapped the magazine release over to the other side. So now on to more important stuff. The magazine releases and grip textures don't really bother me one way or another. I don't have much of a preference. They don't affect the function of the firearm, so they're not really that important to me. But there's one big pro and one big con for each firearm that does give me a preference one over the other. Now, a giant pro for the Gen 4, and that would be a con for the Gen 3, is that the Gen 4 comes with interchangeable backstraps. It comes with all these backstraps that you can snap onto the back of your Gen 4 to make it fit your hand better. Now, the importance of a firearm fitting your hand is that the grip size is going to determine where your trigger finger lays on the trigger, which is going to determine the ease of which you can accurately place shots on target. So that alone gives me preference Gen 4 over Gen 3, but nothing is perfect. The Gen 4 has a major con that the Gen 3 got right, and that is the finish of the firearm. This Gen 4 got holster wear so freaking fast that I was blown away. I'm not used to Glocks getting holster wear like that, but the finish on the Gen 4 does not stand up to constant in and out of the holster like the Gen 3 does. But as you can see, the Gen 3 has no holster wear on it, and I have had this Gen 3 forever. Now, the holster wear doesn't really bother me with Glocks because I buy Glocks as tools. I don't feel bad about beating them up. You know, whereas if I spend the money on an HK or a SIG or a high-end 1911, I might be just a little more hesitant if I found out that, you know, holster wear would be more prevalent with one finish over the other. But, you know, Glocks are blocks. They're tools, they're defensive tools. And I don't buy them as collector's items or range toys or safe queens. I buy them to be put to work. So the holster wear doesn't really bother me, but it's definitely worth mentioning. And I have also seen other people online experiencing rust issues with the finish on the Gen 4. Now, I'm in Arizona. We do not see rust out here, so that's not something that I have experienced. But if I were to recommend the Gen 3 or the Gen 4, I would say 100% go for the Gen 4 if you're picky about grip, because the backstrap alone makes it worth it. If you're not picky about that at all and you're looking at saving a few bucks, then the Gen 3 is completely the way to go. because they function identically. They're both equally reliable, and I would not hesitate to carry either one of these firearms. I mean, I carry them both. But my personal recommendation would be the Gen 4 just because you can customize it to fit your hand. But at the end of the day, only you know what's right for you. Everyone has a different personal preference when it comes to their firearm. Like, you can't pick out clothes for someone, you can't pick out a car for someone. It's a very personal decision, and it's going to boil down to which one feels better in your hand. Make the decision for yourself, but those are just the basic differences, and that is my personal recommendation. Thank you for watching my video on the Gen 3 versus the Gen 4 Glocks. Hopefully you found it to be useful. If you'd like to see more videos from me, be sure to like and subscribe. Nightwood out.